Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Tearing It Up. I am here today with a lovely guest I'm excited to talk to and dive into what she's got going on, because I feel like for a lot of you out there, it's going to be a nice kind of change of pace. It is just a different path, a non-traditional path, which we always love talking about. And I think this conversation can really spark a lot in you listeners out there of just thinking a little bit differently and knowing that there is something out there for you. And sometimes you really do just have to create it yourself and try new things and see what sticks, and just not be afraid to pivot, right? When something's not working or you don't have the same passion or something for it anymore, it's absolutely okay to turn and try a different direction. So I've got Carmela here today. I don't want to butcher your last name because I still, to this day, almost 4 years into this podcast, am so bad about double checking pronunciation before hitting record. So I want to let you say that part. But where we first want to start off is Carmela, where are you joining us from today? Where in the world are you as we record?
I am from all over the place in Colorado. I am currently in Denver. I usually recreate up in Breckenridge, Colorado. Love to ski, love to hike. Calling in from there, that's where I usually would be doing this podcast. But about myself, Carmela Montenegro. It's all good, however you want to pronounce it. I personally don't really care. Was a diversity, equity, inclusion consultant. Been doing this for the outdoor industry off and on since I want to say 2017 by now. Very passionate about getting diverse individuals that don't really see themselves in the outdoors to be outside. And currently pursuing that in my outdoor industry master's program at Western Colorado University. I started this journey in 2017, got my first outdoor ed job for my undergrad. And I remember looking through the pages of the annual quote unquote yearbook. And I was like, there's no people that look like me. This program's been around like 10 or so years. I could probably count on one hand how many people kind of look like me. And that really started this idea of, okay, there should be more diversity when we're talking about the outdoor industry and outdoor spaces and recreation. When I was working for that outdoor ed program, I was backpacking, canoe camping, we were climbing, we did the whole gamut, essentially, whatever you can do in the city of Milwaukee. And I started gaining seniorship, and I thought, okay, how can I work with my team to better support these individuals, especially since we did have an affordable program, we had some scholarship opportunities. I was like, okay, we need to appeal to these communities. How do we do that? Training my team, doing the personal outreach myself, leading those programs, getting overeducated as most people do in the outdoor industry.
Mm-hmm.
And it got to a point, you just get over certified. I got my wilderness first responder. I almost got my AMGA just so I can do climbing trips with these individuals who liked having me around. But it got to 2019. I was nearing the end of my graduation, and I was like, I want to graduate with a bang. I met my first DEI consultant, August Ball, Cream City Conservation. She mostly works with nonprofits and B Corp organizations. And I was like, I want to be like her. This woman became my mentor off and on while I was doing the DEI consulting thing. I graduated January 2020. I was working as a freelance social media manager, and I thought, you know what? Not really in love with this. Ended up moving to Colorado, working at REI. They cut my hours, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be privy to whatever a big organization tells me that I'm valuable for. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to do my thing, see how it goes. Went hard on it. Next thing you know, I was pretty well known in the outdoor industry in 2023. People still hit me up. People still recognize me to this day. It's really cool to get to this point, but it's been a lot of um, trials and tribulations, excuse me, in the past year and a half. And I'm like, you know what? I need to figure something else out. And that's kind of why I'm glad about this master's program. I've decided actually over the last couple days and more formally last night and this morning that I have big announcement gonna shut down the DEI consulting business. And as
Wow.
scary as it is to like come out of my mouth, yeah, it very recent. As scary as it is to say, I am going to really lean into the research that I have with my master's program, figure out how to still do the impact work of the DEI consulting, but do it in a way that better aligns with my identity, what the world needs, in a way that is also political and unfortunately legal. So
Mm.
those are, and I'm hoping things will settle down while I finish out this grad program and do research, while I figure out how to repivot that DEI consulting lens into something else and relaunch sometime after I graduate in May. Assuming everything goes right, I'm still nervous.
Wow, that's huge. I mean, like I said, you when we were messaging the night before last night, but getting on
Mhm.
this podcast and you mentioned,
Yeah.
shutting down the business. Obviously, I hadn't known how recent that decision was. I had a feeling it's pretty recent, but like
Really?
not that recent. And said those things coming out of your mouth for the first time and into the world can be very, very scary. And then, make them feel that much more real at times. But I think what you're doing, when anyone makes a decision like this, it is scary, but it also is like takes so much courage, right? To try something new, to do something different, and to just recognize that what you're doing isn't really working for you or maybe even the people that you want to help. Like, just knowing from what I hear from you, it sounds like there is something that you can do that will have a bigger impact and reach more people. And so it's more important right now that you focus on figuring out what that is instead of continue to kind of go down the path you are on. And sometimes, you know, I'm in a little bit of a stage where it feels similar, where it's like you might be going into a phase where it feels like nothing's really happening or happening that fast, or a rebuilding process, right? And that can be really hard. We're like, well, I've done all this work over here for this, and now I feel like I have to like kind of start from scratch, and that's terrifying. Did you have any feelings that kind of resonated with that about making this decision and worrying, like, is this going to be starting all over? Is this going to be the bigger thing, the normal kind of questions?
Yeah. So last year, the idea started wandering in my head. I was putting the same amount of effort reaching out to people, previous clients, asking for network connections, and getting a quarter of the revenue that I had in 2023. And I was like, I'm putting the same amount of effort. What's really happening? Looking at the outdoor industry, feeling the financial squeeze, especially with climate change and how that impacts. I'm primarily focused on ski resorts and nonprofits revolving around the ski industry. And with climate change significantly impacting their revenue, several organizations are like, is this really a priority to improve culture, to get diverse individuals? We're doing great with J1s and H1Bs coming through the doors. So essentially international people for those who are unfamiliar. And I'm like, I have to pivoted a little bit more toward the for-profit and nonprofit spaces, particularly those in B Corp and in conservation. So shifted a little bit that way, seeing a little bit more success, but generally no upward trend. And until this year, seeing about the same amount of work. And I was like, I'm burnt out. When I was at the peak of it in 2023, realizing how much it took an emotional toll on me and my mental health, how it really challenged my personal ethics and my values to do this work. And I'm like, I want to continue doing this work, but I need to take a step back. So for the first half of this year, it's essentially me significantly winding down operations and systems and being like, okay, if something comes naturally inbound, I'll mention it in a meeting here and there. But it got to a point in the last couple of weeks, I'm like, the passion is gone.
Hmm.
Mental health, the ethics, and trying to align it with who I am as a business person. And as controversial as it sounds, ethical capitalism sounds like an oxymoron, but I wanted to do it in an
Right.
appropriate way. Finding out that, for example, 1 day or 3 day workshops are statistically more harmful in the long run for an organization and the mental health of the diverse communities that are already present uh, in these organizations. It's just a check mark, a sense of hope. For those who already resent DEI, it can push them into further resentment of DEI. Just doing simple couple days worth of workshops. And I'm like, that is a whole ethics thing for me. I do not want to take on money for something that is going to do more harm.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, I need to take a step back, figure out who I really am, So, an idea that we've been talking about in my grad program for my research is to talk about market research and how corporate social responsibility impacts go to market strategies for diverse communities, how putting funding into, for example, Blackpackers, National Brotherhood of Skiers, or Brown Girls Climb, for example, how that would impact those communities long term. Those are some other ideas. But just doing 1 day trainings ethically doesn't sit well for me anymore. I'm trying to figure out how to pivot. And that's the plan after I graduate with my master's, is to still do the work, but do it with better intention. So it's a goodbye for now, but
Yeah.
figure it out later.
Exactly. I mean, no, I love all of that, and like I said, I think that takes more courage sometimes, right, to put the stop on something, especially and recognize like the passion's gone, one, and like why? Where did it go? Why is it gone now? Recognizing your own mental health and that going like kaput and out the door, and why again is that happening? And burnout has been something that's been talked about a lot in the last few years and has become a lot more mainstream, and we learn more about it. We know it's a very fucking real thing, and
Yeah,
that
real
ties
fucking real.
into our yeah, and that ties into our mental health, and it's just so hard when you feel like you're kind of banging your head against the wall and maybe nothing's changing, or you're finding out, you're learning through other research that actually what you're doing could be doing more harm. I found that incredibly interesting what you were just saying, and I have heard firsthand from people on this topic of conversation, DEI. It was an older generation of people that I heard it from, which I think is a little more kind of, I guess, standard maybe, but it was about like, oh, we've been doing this kind of training forever, right? And people are acting like it's brand new and blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to do another training. And so when you made that comment of these 3 day trainings or workshops that could actually be doing more harm because the people who are already like not that interested in it, it just pushes them further away. And that really hit from these comments that I heard from other people. And again, it was an older generation, which not trying to make excuses for them by any means, but it's very hard to change the way of thinking for anyone at all, right? We've talked about it when it comes into the like retail space and talking about changing consumer behavior. Well, it's similar. Like you're trying to change the
Mhm.
behavior and what people know and what's been rooted in them for so long. I don't think doesn't mean that these people are, like racist or sexist or homophobic or transphobic or anything like that, but they just don't understand the what it can do for other people because they're probably not in that audience. They are not the diverse folks themselves. So it doesn't, I guess, maybe affect them. So they don't see how it does affect or help others or anything. They think like, oh, this is useless to me. I care about people. I'll hire this person. It's like that's not the point. We still all need to talk about it and learn, right?
Yeah, you gotta get comfortable with those uncomfortable conversations, I'm finding.
Yeah.
And yeah, have had many of those conversations with higher ups from X, Y, and Z organizations. We're doing this, we are doing that. We've done so many trainings. Definitely resonate with that. And um for those who have experience in like a cultural management or leadership consulting. In bigger organizations within the outdoor industry, you'll find that quiet systemic change is really what needs to happen within these organizations. So implementing policies, so having extending parental leave, having the language of parental leave is not just beneficial for the mother, for example, for hopefully if your organization will allow you 12 weeks off to take care of your child, but also parents who are adopting or father figures. That father figure, and just simply changing it to parental leave, encourages more men or the not birth giver essentially to be more involved with the child for the first few weeks of their life. And that's truly when the bonding happens with that parental figure. So simply just changing the language and learning about how Siri was originally meant for those who had limited dexterity within their fingers, and is more as an aid for those who had special needs. And now we're using Siri when we drive and hands-off driving, and understanding that it's quietly been impacting our lives, just doing these things that are meant for diverse communities. But
Mhm.
also, I use Siri all the time because I just wake up and I don't want to look at a screen. I'm like, Siri, turn off my alarm or set a timer for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's the lens that I want to go about,
Mhm.
is being more discreet about it and doing the impactful work under the guise of something else.
Yeah.
So that's how you got to do it nowadays, I guess.
Yeah, it's such a huge conversation, right? DEI, and I feel like a lot of times that maybe when the people kind of turn their nose up at it or think that it doesn't affect them, why do I have to do another training, blah blah blah, is that we are thinking about it in this way that's talked about, like more mainstream, I guess, in DEI, which in my opinion is race, sex, and gender identities. That's what we talk about most. But I love what you just mentioned about simply changing the wording, parental leave instead of like maternity. So that opens the doors for the non birth giving parent to feel like they can take the leave too, or have the time, or ask for it, or whatever it is. Or even the fact of Siri, like, yeah, this came about to help folks with accessibility issues, and look how it's integrated and infiltrated our lives. Like, these things may start from somewhere else, but eventually, like, they have the capacity to help everyone, but they start small, and they start with a smaller group of people to help lift them up. In the end, it will help everybody. And when people don't understand that, it blows my mind. And obviously what's happening now in the world and with this administration, it's even a hotter topic. I mean, I think it's calmed down a little bit because other things have, you hit the news, the headlines and whatnot above it, but it was very much so in those headlines at the beginning, with people like a sweep through businesses of cutting DEI um, programs or whatnot, like how impactful that can be on people. Do you have any comments or thoughts on that as a whole, and why DEI is, I mean, we've already talked about it, but like so important in all different sizes of organizations? Because I'm sure there's some listeners out there that either one, maybe run their own business and are trying to figure out how they can incorporate some of this, or are a part of a bigger business that maybe is at risk of losing this.
Yeah. One of the biggest, there's two big things. A majority of people have some sort of something that would consider them marginalized, whether visible or invisible. More people than you think are considered neurodivergent or aligned with neurodivergency. Or if, for example, I'm autoimmune, you can't tell just by looking at me. And there's a lot of hidden disabilities um, that impact a lot of Americans. And understanding that to begin with, when you think of policies and thinking of implementing change, think about what is the core reason why we're doing X, Y, and Z. And the reason why I mentioned that a lot of people have hidden disabilities is to kind of have that in the back of your mind as you're trying to implement policies and systems within your organization. There is a nonprofit that I'm the advisor for. I'm their DEI consultant or advisor for their board. And a lot of them are like, how we consider the LGBTQ community? Have we considered specifically single parents from X, Y, and Z communities? And it's like, what is the underlying root of all that? Yes, race. I think race and oppression in the inherent caste system and the hierarchical system that comes from the animal kingdom is inherently natural. I think that is important to address. Impacts how we perceive DEI is trying to figure out how to bring people from theoretically the bottom of the hierarchy back up in the ranks, but also understanding what other layers support this caste system. A lot of it is race, a lot of it is financial, a lot of it is opportunity, a lot of it is bias. It's so many different things that impact accessibility. For example, within this nonprofit that I talk to, a lot of it is accessibility and finance. So, what can we do to support people from the LGBTQ community who we've been finding work 2 to 3 jobs, work more than the average person up where this nonprofit is based out of? Accessibility. Okay. Are there any events that the people who can't afford cars or people who just generally enjoy affordable transportation, how can we um, have an event close to the public transit system or something easily you can see from the highway? Figuring out the themes, if you're like, I really want to talk to the LGBTQ community or single parents, what is a theme that is currently plaguing those communities? And how can we go to them so we can primarily target the reason I also mentioned that if we wanted to primarily target single moms, there's bound to be somebody who is considered lower income who would like to have access to the car or to the bus in public transit system. So again, think about one and or several, figure out the themes, and try and aim for it to target as many people as possible. And then I would say go for systems implementation after that. Where their outreach, one of the things they think about is how are these people going to access this location to volunteer or work on the trail. It's lots of little things that really add up. Kind of lost sight of the question.
Yeah, no, I think it's all been super you're answering it absolutely, and just how or why DEI is important for anyone who might
Mhm.
fall under the umbrella, whether it's part of their job or their the business they work for is losing it, or they themselves are under the DEI umbrella. Because as I mentioned, it's a huge umbrella, right? That we don't often think of when we think of most people. When you think of DEI, you think of these certain groups of people, and you're bringing even more to the forefront of why it's so important. It's because it includes so many more people than we even realize. This is not just about race, sex, gender, class. So many more things. And I just think it's important to hear this, and for us all, I think most of our listeners know this and feel this way and think it's important and do not want to lose like programs or anything. But when we have a little more education on it ourselves, then I that gives us the power to talk more about it ourselves and kind of spread the message far and wide. And yes, a lot of listeners of the podcast, myself, are in the outdoor industry, but it's also start small, start where you're at. I often get overwhelmed by what's happening in the world and feel like there is no fix. I'm a part of the Futurist Project, an outdoor leadership program. I'm going through
Oh,
that right
yes.
now. The beginning half of it, the first a good chunk of the modules we went through did feel very overwhelming in topics like DEI. We discussed in great length sustainability, advocacy, all these things, and they felt so huge. And each one I had to come back to myself and remember that I can only do what I can do, but I can do what I can do. Like, your reach doesn't have to be huge, but as long as you're taking the steps forward, it still does matter. So I think these topics for a lot of people, like I said, can feel very overwhelming and huge, and you feel like you're not going to be the one to solve it. That's great, fine. You don't have to be, but know that you still are like making the right steps. You're doing what you can with what you've got, and that's all we can do and all we can ask of other people. So I think anything you have to give us is just so helpful in encouraging everyone to just keep moving forward. And yeah, we've talked about how your mental health, right, has been affected by what you're doing in your work, and you're pivoting to try and figure out how you can maybe get back to that place and that place of passion while still helping people. So what does that, from the lens you have right now, maybe look like for you? Will you still be focusing in like the outdoor industry specifically, do you think?
Yeah, a lot of my background is in the outdoor industry, conservation, people who want to make an impact. That's where the work I'm finding is really happening. And just kind of to go back on a comment you said earlier, there's a lot of DEI consultants, a lot of political change makers that are either one of two boats. Change the whole world. You're not passionate enough. You should do more. If you're, and I still firmly believe this, don't get me wrong. If you are, oh my gosh, I'm going to get this quote wrong, but it's by Professor Ibram X. Kendall. He wrote the book How to Be Anti-Racist. So it's, if you are not racist, the opposite isn't anti-racist. You are
Mm.
still perpetuating racism. I don't remember the quote. Wow, I'm really blanking on this. But it's
No
essentially you're either
worries.
doing the work and you're going full on, or you're not. So yeah, I haven't had to say it in a while, but it's an all in or nothing, very extreme. But also, if you're more on the indigenous, well, at least for the indigenous communities I've worked with, a more liberation front, more policy head, it's more I can impact my little corner of the world kind of impact. Um, and I went from the extreme side. I'm like doing everything I can And that is really what impacted my mental health, is like going full in. And now I'm shifting to the I can only impact my corner of the world. That's why I'm niching in. I don't know what to niche into is the other thing. But I do know it's within the outdoor industry. I know the outdoor industry. I'm getting my master's in the outdoor industry conservation. I think there's a lot of opportunity here, especially since a lot of my friends are in the tech side, and the outdoor industry, in my opinion, lags very hard when it comes to innovation.
Yes.
And it lags. Talking about systems, operation, DEI, you can tell that the outdoor industry is falling behind in some parts compared to the tech side. But yeah, figuring out those two realms. So for mental health reasons, shifting to I can only impact my little corner of the world. It's definitely within the outdoor industry. My current business venture is more on impact managers and consultants. I do systems operations for like coaches and consultants who are still doing DEI adjacent work, living vicariously through them and supporting their endeavors. But the plan is to continue doing that work, just work as a freelancer and strategist. And then when I'm ready, do something different or pivot the systems operation side and the business side or to the outdoor industry. Who knows? And another realm that I have fiddled around with is the opportunity to get into local government.
I
I don't
love
think you
that.
and I talked about this, but yeah, not as many brown young queer folk like me in small government. And I'm like, okay, I hate to think of it as a fallback plan, but I think I want to do what I can on the business side. And if mental health takes me in the right place, I meet the right people. Maybe I get into government and do impact work differently. I was just talking to my academic advisor right before this and talking about affordable housing, talking about taxes when you live in a resort town, figure out how to get more mental health resources to those communities. It's very different in a resort town.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about mental health because what is it, the paradise paradox? You think it's perfect, but it's not. Figuring that part out as I do take a step back, like if I do want to get into government, what are my values? What do I need to know so I can be firm on my boundaries and figure out the language and the jargon? And who knows where I'll be in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
That's huge. I think this question comes up a lot looking at life in a bigger lens and like, where do you see yourself in 5, 10 years, whatever. And I have kind of been saying for a while, like, I hate that question because I don't know and I don't
Yeah.
want to really. Like, I have a somewhat general answer that I want to be happy and doing something that aligns with my values and I'm passionate about and blah, blah, blah. Because I also want I don't know, I want the flexibility to figure it out because that's what I'm doing right now. That's what you're doing right now is like figuring it out. So I don't have this exact specific plan. Like, I'm gonna, move up in management, do this, become the CEO, whatever it is. Like, we're carving our own paths over here. So yeah, I want it to be open to change, to evolve, to figure out what it is, as long as it aligns with my values and passions. And that's super important to me. It sounds like it's super important to you. The talk of local government, I love that so much. It's been something I have been considering of, like, running for town council or whatnot. I definitely don't have any kind of experience in that realm. And, reading bills and all this and that and the other are not what I would consider fun by any means, but I just feel like I would like to disrupt some systems. And that's kind of where I stand. Like, I just want to, be a bull in the china shop and fuck some shit up and disrupt some things and just be the person who's kind of like challenging other people, because you get wrapped in those things and you start making decisions based on the influence that others might have on you. Yeah, I just feel like once you get in there, others can get their hands on you and you can very quickly lose sight of your own values. So I think it's super important to, like I said, be in touch with what yours are and be firm on some boundaries before entering into something like that. But yeah, I resonate there. It's been on my mind a little bit. It's a huge commitment and scary to kind of take that on, or to just be any kind of public figure whatsoever is not really, I don't want to really have people be looking at me or whatever. I just think about the bad that comes with it instead of like the good. Like, what good could this do? Who could I inspire or influence or speak up for? I have also felt like what you mentioned, there's kind of two boats, right? Of the all in or nothing type boat, or do what you can in your little corner of the world. And I'm very much also going and trying to really stick to that, do what I can in my little corner of the world, because the other boat feels so very overwhelming and you can't be in it at all if you're not doing something. And so I feel like I can be in my little rowboat over here just by using this platform that I have that does reach a tiny little audience. It still reaches a tiny little audience, but that tiny little audience are people who can make a big impact because they care about what we're talking about. This little audience we have is loyal and trusting, and I can just count on them. And that fucking matters way more than having this huge platform to people who are only like half listening or whatnot. So I am trying to remember to use my platforms and soapboxes for the power that they have, and go with that. Except help my little corner of the
Mhm.
world, not fix it, just help it, do what I can, lift others up, and talk to folks like you who are out there doing work in your little corner of the world, and how can like our little corners work together, or
Mhm.
inspire or influence each other. So I think that's, yeah, what we all need to focus on is our own little corners of the world.
Yeah, and I think you're doing great. I've listened to a couple pods. I think we met what, like 2, 3 years ago now. At yeah, Swell. I think that was 2 years ago now.
It might be coming up on 3
Time
in the
doesn't
fall.
exist.
I know, I think it was 2022.
Oh, good God! But yeah, like you and me, we're. I think it's really cool. Our little corners colliding today and just talking about it. Me talking about impact management and you talking to the biking community and like, what it means to be, I don't know, sick as fuck. Like, but yeah, the alignment is super important, especially when you're talking to a ton of people. When you're doing podcasts, I can only imagine you're like, okay, this is who I am. This is what I want this podcast to be. How do I want it to align with who I am? Who do I want people to associate me with? That takes a lot of value. Because DEI consulting, yeah, the money was nice, but I wasn't doing it for the money. The money just happened to follow something that I was good at, passionate about. And for you, an audience, and hopefully money coming along as people are listening to the alignment between the podcast and your passion and your values. I think that's important as I consider ethical capitalism. Capitalism is a nasty word, but it's ingrained in American society. But if we can be more values driven and doing it in a way that impacts the world and our, or just our little corner of it, I think is what makes my little world go round, is like knowing that I'm trying to not create any harm in whatever it is that I do. I was pretty intentional when I was like, I want to build systems, build other organizations in capitalism, but I wanted to do that with coaches and consultants who are doing DEI adjacent work, because I'm like, they're doing the work that I do not have the capacity for. Mad respect for those individuals and communities that are still doing the work. So I'm like, you know what? Whatever I can do to support you, I'm going to be very intentful and helping you have that slice of the capitalist pie.
Yeah. Well, you're still doing the work, right? But you're, like you said, you're
Yeah.
moving to a point where it's just a little more behind the scenes, but you're supporting those people who are maybe more on the front lines. And that's just as important and huge, Carmela.
Thank you. Sometimes I forget. I'm like, I do systems. I'm like, I'm the plumber. It's not sexy. You don't see me, but somebody needs to flush the toilets. And I'm like, you know what? It's not
Yeah.
sexy, but at least they're getting a nice house. I remember one time when I was a kid, I broke that little floaty thingy on the
Mm,
toilet. And I was like, oh God, my parents are going to kill me. And I was like, okay, as I'm doing these systems and thinking about that incident I had when I was like 5 or 6 or whatever, I'm like, okay, I'm at least fixing the toilet.
yeah.
It's one less thing for them to worry about.
I
It's
love
not
that.
sexy, but it's important.
And
You have to make humor.
absolutely. And everyone also has that unsexy part of what they're doing, right? It could be the admin or whatever, where it's just like, this is not the fun part, right? I do not subscribe to the do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life statement. Like, bull fucking shit. You like, there's always things you don't want to do. Nothing's ever
Yeah.
always sunshine and rainbows, but that's okay. And I don't strive for that, because also what I've learned in life and just having adversity in my life is that that makes the good so much better, right? When you go through the bad.
Mhm.
And yes, it can be easy to say that when you are not in the bad or in the suck, right? If you're in it right now out there and feel like there is no way out, very hard to hear something said like that or somebody say that. You're like, yeah, fuck off. Like, no, it sucks. I don't want the bad. I just want the good. Like, get me out of here. And we always have to look back, right? Hindsight, and realize what it took to get us to the next point. And life is just those ups and downs and the peaks and valleys. You just have to ride the highs and ride the lows. And like I said, it's just not always sunshine and rainbows. You can be very passionate about something, and there's still going to be days that you don't want to show up. And it sounds like that's kind of maybe what was happening with you, and where you realized that, well, that passion is actually seeping out more than what you thought. And it's time to pivot and turn. And like I said, you're still very much doing the work, but it's just that back end side. And it's just as important. You need all the pieces. So you're still a pillar of that. So it's huge, and I'm so
Okay.
happy you're out there doing it, and especially in our industry. So usually too, we got right into it. I didn't want to stop anything. I am curious though on your background and how you got into the outdoors and why this industry is so important to you, and continuing to do the work in it.
Yeah. So I started my first job in the outdoors, quote unquote, in 2017. I got hired to be a trip guide and outdoor educator at my undergrad in the University of Wisconsin Milwaukee. And pivotal moment was in my first couple of months there. We were cleaning out one of the gear closets to prepare for the new school year. And I remember looking at this yearbook and I was like, okay, I could probably count on one hand in this 20 some ish years program history of how many people that look like me. And I just felt this feeling of dread just sitting at the bottom of my stomach. I was like, I want more people to look like me. I want friends that look like me to experience like going backpacking and canoe camping and the freaky quiet that I did not grow up accustomed to. I fucking love that freaky quiet. You know, it took me a while, but I fucking love it now. And um, other than the guiding and trip leading, I got to a point of seniority where I pivoted from education to my marketing degree. And at that point, I was like, okay, I want to support the fundraising opportunities. I want to get more people in our programs. With fundraising, I got pretty fucking good at it. Did film festivals, raised money, but also on the backhand or backside of it, I was like, I want more people to look like me. So I asked my program director, I was like, I want to go to these programs and talk about these opportunities to go outside. International students, like, this is these are one of the things that Americans pride themselves on, is to be outdoors compared to the hustle and bustle of being in, like, for example, if you don't know, South Korea is very busy. My cousin's Korean and she told me like New York City seems like a small town to her, like very
Wow.
population dense, and like experience something that is, you can experience one of the biggest places, America, sharing those opportunities. And I was like, I want to keep doing this. I'm a highly empathetic person. I was finding that out doing those programs and seeing these individuals light up when they experience their first camping trip, go on their first whitewater rafting trip, teaching them how to climb their first rappel and all those opportunities, and feeling that through their lens really, really drove the passion in me. I was like, let's keep doing this again and again and again. To a point where when I did become a DEI consultant, there are people that from communities that you don't expect to want to work at a ski resort, work in conservation, work as a backpacking guide. Like, even if they did it for one season or a couple seasons, it's something off their bucket list and they're super fucking passionate about it. It's really amazing to see that excitement supporting organizations that want to bring that joy to these communities that are like, I don't see this being a forever career, but I want to fucking do it. I want to say to my future kids, like, I've done this. I was a whitewater rafting guide, or I was a ski instructor for a couple of years. Like, I think that's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
I did not foresee myself to be a guide for the rest of my life, but I'm like, if I ever have kids, I'm going to say, like, yeah, I did that shit.
Yeah.
So that's the background I came into, is just being essentially kind of going back into what I learned in therapy. It's very healing to my inner child to see other people, I guess, explore the curiosities they had as a kid and be playful with them and explore. That way they can move on and live
Mhm.
a more authentic life. It's fucking fascinating to find that true self, and doing that with the outdoors as a medium is fantastic.
I
Fucking love
love
it.
it. I love it so much. And is that where the outdoors kinda came into your life, was in college there where you were getting those first experiences in, like, climbing and rafting and all that? And where you
Oh
started to
god, no.
realize, like oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, I grew up in the city of Chicago, moved to the suburbs, and I was like, "Wow, stars are real." And I was like, wow, it's kind of like freaky and quiet out here compared to the city. And I got so curious about that when I was like 11, I think. And my parents were not supportive of me being out or wanting to be outdoorsy. And I remember I was 16. I lied to my parents. I was like, I'm going to go hang out with a friend this weekend. We were camping. And I was like, you know what? I'm glad I lied. We did not do much. We did not do much. We camped by a river, and my friend really liked this guy, and she took selfies and did her makeup the whole weekend. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna hang out by the river and listen to it while she does her makeup and take selfies. We were 16 or whatever, and I'm like, this is dumb, but I love it.
I
Just
love
waiting
that.
for my friend to finally finish her makeup and getting bit by mosquitoes, playing Monopoly and listening to the creek. One of my favorite things in the early days of the outdoors. I'm like, you know what? Some people would have hated it. I fucking loved it.
That's so cool. Well, that's when you know it's real for you and true, and a path you have to just continue to explore, and realizing that, you're an empathetic person, and that what you're getting from just seeing your own feelings of, like, lighting up when you see others light up and you're showing them this new thing or getting them out there is so huge and important too, because they do say that, like, no act is, like, totally selfless, right? And it's in those moments I think of
Mm.
that, like, well, where sure you feel like you're being, like, selfless by helping others get outside, but it just makes you feel so fucking good too. Like, well, it doesn't have to be totally selfless. Who cares? Like, if what I'm getting out of it is just the pure joy that I could help make someone's life better, I think that's okay. I'm not doing it just for that joy. It's a happy consequence of it, right? I would like that this gets to happen, and I resonate with that very much, because I've been a guide and a coach and things in several different areas of my life. So I totally get that feeling when someone does something that maybe they never thought they could do or never saw themselves in this situation, and you can literally see that energy radiate from them. It just is amazing to see humans have that experience, because we know what it's like to feel it. So when you know that you can give that feeling to someone else is so huge. And I also love that so much and try to do some of that in my
Mhm.
life still. But yeah, it looks a little differently these days than it did when, like, guiding was, like, the easiest experience. Yeah, there's someone's out there doing something they were maybe afraid of heights, and now they're out here and you're like, hey, like, I can't believe I did this. I didn't think I could ever do this. And see, you can do anything, put your mind to it. But
Honestly, yeah. Yeah. And kind of going back to the DEI topic, it's like, for my experience, it looks different when you work with diverse communities and hearing, like, I never thought someone like me would experience something like that. Love it. Yeah. Living vicariously through them. It's easier for me to feel that empathy because I look more like them. There's a psychological anomaly. It's essentially shared fate, I think it's called. But essentially, kind of going back to it, that's why just the example that they used in the psychology is when they show, for example, a black person getting shot in the news. That's why it feels deeper for the black community than it does for people who don't identify with that. But the same happens when you feel the joy. For me, as an Asian person that's queer, seeing other communities that look like me, it feels I feel a different kind of connection and empathy because I look more like that person, that mirror effect. And I mean, that's why we do this, right?
Yeah.
Get more people outside and empower those who are out there. And education is not a limited resource. I think that's one of the things that other people are stuck with is like, no, it's joy and education is not a limited resource. As long as you have the time and capacity, I say go for it, you know? But that was just something that came to my mind as you were talking about impact.
It's what I've hear a lot of women say, especially these days when there are more opportunity for women in some of these sports that weren't that. It's like you didn't know what was possible because you never saw someone like you doing it. And there are, the few people who always forge the path ahead who do have that courage. Like, I don't care if there's no one who looks like me, I'm going to do it anyways. But that can be a small and select group of people for numerous reasons, right? Maybe they didn't have the support, the accessibility, whatever it is. But once that one person can kind of break through, more people follow because of exactly what you mentioned there, that psychological part of like relate more to that person that you feel like looks like you, represents you, and gives you that courage or confidence that if they can do it, I can do it kind of thing. And it's huge. And that's why, again, this whole conversation full circle, like why DEI is important, because if other people see people like them doing the thing, holding this position or, exploring over here, whatever it is, they inherently feel like they can also do it. They connect to it. Overall, like you said, the mission, getting more people, for us particularly, that is outside doing the things and making it accessible to anyone and everyone who wants to be there and experience it, because it is not any one person's or group's place, right? Like it does not belong to anybody. And we have to do what we can to help everyone get out and be able to experience these joys in life.
Yeah, one of those rising tides lift all boats kind of thing.
Absolutely. Well, Carmela, we're nearing our hour here, and I appreciate you coming on so much and talking about DEI, talking about what you're doing, why it's important. And I sure hope that someone out there, takes a nugget from this, like I said, in whatever capacity in their life, if whether they maybe resonate with you and you've given them now the courage or confidence to go get outside or go for that degree, or, I'm sure there's so many different ways that this conversation could have impacted people. So I know that someone out there has taken some nugget of this conversation and can find it useful in their life. Tell the people out there, though, where they might be able to find you. If I don't know if you're ready to really share like what kind of work you might be doing, or if anyone wants to work with you right now, how they can, since you're kind of pivoting, but maybe they just want to follow along. Where can they connect with you?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on socials, particularly on LinkedIn and Instagram. LinkedIn, Carmela Montenegro. I'd be very impressed if you find someone with the same name as me. If you do, hit me up because I've been on a hunt for another Carmela. Been trying since I was a kid. I've never met another Carmela, but
Really?
look me up, Carmela Montenegro. Just look me up on, yeah. Closest I got was this little 6-year-old who got her middle name, Carmela. It was like Ilia, Carmela, and then whatever Italian last name she got it from her grandmother. I was like, okay, of course it's like an Italian grandmother with his name. But yeah, look me up on LinkedIn, Instagram, carmela.irl. I share some unhinged nonsense on there, my political views, being outside, drinking. I drink a lot of water. I like to drink water from different bodies of water throughout Colorado and recently Jackson. It's a little dorky thing that I love to do. So find me on those two socials, websites pending. Keep an eye out for whenever I relaunch a business that is more or explicitly, I guess, DEI adjacent in the upcoming year. But if you ever want to reach me, my email is my personal email, montenegro.carm. It's my nickname, .carm at gmail.com. I answer my emails, not timely, but I do answer them. If you ever want to reach out to me. I check every Monday and Tuesday. The rest of the week, absolutely not happening. But 90% of it's spam anyway. So the other 10% is like coupons to REI and
Hey, I love that. Boundaries. I love it.
make
Checking
an
my email
appointment.
Mondays, Tuesdays. You know that you're not going to get a response from Carmela on the other days of the week. That is solid. I think that I need to take a page from your book in that. I just have a really hard time leaving things left unread, but then it bites me in the ass because I do that and then I don't respond and I'm like, oh shit. Should have left it on red. So you heard it, people. Go
It's
find and connect with Carmela. I know we're obviously connected on LinkedIn. I'll have to make sure I find you on Instagram because we love an unhinged profile. So for sure, I'll link those in the show notes, guys. And you can reach out to Carmela
wildly
if you've got
unhinged.
some questions or you just want to connect and see what she's up to. Again, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge with us, and I'm excited to follow your journey, see what you do next, and stay connected.
Thank you. I'm excited to see what I do next.
Yes, awesome. All right, everybody out there, thanks for listening. Connect with Carmela in the show notes below, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and would do us a huge favor, since we don't have any sponsors or anything like that, and would rate and review us on whatever platform it is you use, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, whatever it is. And if you're listening and downloading just through the website, tearingituppodcast.com, leave comments. We'll definitely engage back with you. And on social media right now, we're just on Instagram. Tearing It Up Podcast is the handle. Like the post, share the post, comment on the post, whatever it is you got. Show us your love so we just stay relevant and show up in the rankings at all. So again, rate and review, please. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.